Hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel once again, and this is gonna be another movie review. So, if there's something strange in your neighborhood, or if there's something weird and it don't look good, who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters. It's time to continue our look at some Halloween movies by looking at Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters. The remake, I'm sure we will more than likely cross paths with at some point in the channel. But for now, we're looking at the OG, the original Ghostbusters movie from 1984. So, as always, not professional wrestling. Oh, Jesus, not professional movie reviewer. Wrestling reviews coming later on this week, but not a professional movie reviewer or analyst or anything like that. And wrestling is kind of cinema sometimes, but nevertheless, I am a man who enjoys good time, and I definitely had a pretty good time, I would say, with this movie. So without further ado, let's get right into it. If you've seen this review tonight before, you kind of know how this works. If you haven't, gonna be talking about what I liked and disliked about the movie, as well as giving a little bit of a plot summary. So we're actually gonna start off with the plot summary here. This is kind of how it, as per usual, this is how it's laid out on the wiki. It's pretty much condensed instead of fall in kind of an order, or to where it makes sense and it's like easy to follow along. So kind of summarizing the plot essentially. But nevertheless, we start off with our three parapsychology professors slash our three protagonists, that being Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, and Egon Spengler, especially with Ray, and with Egon, not really with Peter, but he's brought on board later. They're trying to have an encounter with a ghost. They're trying to go ghost hunting, not like the 3 a.m. challenge, but they get a chance encounter when a ghost freaks out a librarian in the public library. And she calls them over. She calls over Ray and Egon, and Peter's brought along. They investigate a little bit. They do find some goo, and Egon gets a sample of it before they encounter the ghost, and it freaks them all out. Which sadly, we don't see that ghost for the rest of the movie. Of all the ghosts that we will encounter in this movie, that ghost is no longer one of them. But in the meantime, I'm unfortunately, they are fired from their jobs at Columbia University. Because they feel that their paranormal focused research department, and of course investigating the paranormal and everything, they feel it's unnecessary and pretty much lets them go. Thankfully they don't do it over the phone like Johnny Ace apparently used to do. But yeah, so they are essentially out of a job, and they need a new job. So they decide that they're going to start their own business. They sell off Ray's house to get the funding for a building, and they start off their own business. It's called, of course, the Ghostbusters. Who are supposed to be kind of exterminators, but for ghosts, investigating the paranormal, and eliminating the paranormal, and they develop some high tech nuclear powered equipment to not only capture and contain the ghosts, but then to store them away. Everything's established, and the Ghostbusters are there. They got their own vehicle and everything, so they got it all decked out. But sadly, business is pretty slow. At first, for the most part, at least until Hannah Barrett has a very chance encounter with the ghost who destroys her eggs. Like, do you know how fragile eggs are, or what the hell, ghost? But and she sees some weird stuff going down in her fridge when after the eggs pop. She sees like a place in alternate dimension, and she sees a demonic creature who utters the word Zool, or something that the nostalgia critic would turn into kind of a running gag for his channel for a little while. But she calls up the Ghostbuster Whereas the secretary, of course, says we got one, and indeed they do have one on so the Ghostbusters go over her and her or essentially she comes to that him that being Dana comes to them him he talks to them about what happened and of course Peter goes and investigates her apartment and tries to flirt with her. Very professional Peter. But meanwhile, Ray and Egon try to research Zool and essentially what it means. But in the meantime, they get another call because there's a ghost in the Cedric Hotel. So they go over there. They got the full gear and everything, and they're ready to capture them a ghost. But apparently they didn't test the equipment before going in, which is probably the one thing you probably should do before you go in with highly dangerous and powerful equipment. But while they're there trying to capture the ghost, which is eating all the food, Egon warns them that not to cross the streams, because as the explosion could be catastrophic. It can essentially blow them up. So I think you all know where this is going. But nevertheless, they do end up capturing the ghost. They chase it pretty much around the hotel. So much for discretion, and so they eventually catch them. They catch them in the ballroom. Do cause quite a bit of damage, but after capturing the ghost, the Ghostbusters essentially become famous. They get a whole lot of business, and they even end up hiring a fourth member, that being Winston Zeddemore, or played, of course, by Ernie Hudson. So, this movie's cool points just went up a whole lot more. But yeah, so the Ghostbusters business is booming for them. But now it's time for the buzzkill of the movie to come in, and that being Walter Peck of the Environmental Protection Agency. Yeah, so wonder if they have any relation to the Acolyte Protection Agency. Yeah, from the WWE. That's probably what they based it off of. But Walter Peck pretty much goes down there and pretty much chastises and in a way kind of belittles mostly Peter, but the Ghostbusters as a whole for what their equipment is doing to the environment, which he kind of has a point a little bit, but it's for capturing ghosts, you know. But Peter is having none of it. Of course, the rest of the Ghostbusters are told about it afterwards. They know they aren't in the conversation and that Peter has with Walter, but they also notice that supernatural energy is surging across the city, and that the containment unit that they installed to store the ghosts that they've captured is almost at capacity, so it's almost full. And they probably should have figured out where they're gonna put all these ghosts, because keeping them all in one place, what happens when you get full? Now where are you gonna put the rest of the ghosts? But in the meantime, they haven't forgotten about Dana and her case, and Peter pretty much informs her that Zool was a demigod who was worshipped as a servant to Gozer the Gozerian, and who is a shape-shifting god of destruction. And too bad it's not just a shape-shifting god of mischief like Loki is, but nevertheless, when she heads back to her apartment, she is possessed by Zool, and she becomes the gatekeeper, I should say, so she essentially becomes the gatekeeper. Meanwhile, one of her neighbors, that being Lewis, who is somehow even more of a nerd than Egon is, or at least there's two types of nerd characters. There's Lewis, and then there's Egon. Egon's more like the, I guess, cool in a way protagonist type nerd. Meanwhile, Lewis is very much like a geek, a dork, if you will. Which, hey, nothing wrong with that. But nevertheless, Lewis is possessed by the Keymaster, and Haster, which is a other demon, and the and he is picked up by police. He goes around town, kind of causing a ruckus and being kind of crazy and everything. But he's kind of taken in by the police. They take him over to Egon, and Egon takes him in, and they say that they gotta keep the gatekeeper and the keymaster separate. It's obviously that won't happen for long, but sure enough, Walter Peck comes in and pretty much brings the police with him, and gets the Ghostbusters arrested. It destroys their, or at least deactivates their containment unit. Which causes a big old explosion and pretty much releases all the ghosts. So much for that environment you care so much about, Walter Peck. But nevertheless, as that's going down, the Keymaster escapes, meets up with the gatekeeper, and they kind of kiss. It's implied that they do a little bit more, but as far as what we see on screen, they do end up kind of linking up, of course. But even while they're in jail, Ray and Egon managed to reveal that Ivo Shandor, who is the leader of a ghost worshiping cult in the early 20th century, designed the apartment building that Dana lived in, and to be an antenna to attract and concentrate spiritual energy, I should say. Excuse me, and I cannot talk today, but it's pretty much a hotspot for to attract energy, to summon Gozer and bring about the apocalypse, which they kind of alluded to as well. Winston kind of brings up the Bible and the apocalypse, everything. He brings up Revelations. He and Ray kind of have a talk about it, and so they essentially comes back to that. But and realizing the gravity of what's going on, the Ghostbusters use that to pretty much convince the mayor to release them from jail. Pretty much saying that, hey, if we're wrong about all this energy and all this supernatural chaos going on, even though Walter Peck, who's also there with the mayor, tries to convince them that tries to convince the mayor, I should say, that it's all like hocus pocus, it's all like mind control. I'm sorry, it can't be that many people mind controlled to all see the exact same thing. The big light coming up and the big thunderstorm kind of surrounding Dana's apartment building. How can you blame that on hypnosis? But nevertheless, the Ghostbusters do convince the mayor that, like, hey, if we're wrong about this, then just lock us back up. But if we're right and we save the city, you can get reelected. And sure enough, that's all it takes to convince the mayor, which I guess is probably the most realistic thing about this movie. That's a whole discussion about politics that I am not fully prepared or equipped or even desire to go into. So we're going to make that joke and leave it at that. But eventually, the Ghostbusters do head up to the top of the building, or as close to the top as they can. Excuse me, to confront the Keymaster and the gatekeeper, and Gozer. They almost fall because the street heat below where the apartment building is kind of gives way, so they fall temporarily. But they're okay. They make their way up 20 flights of stairs, or at least 20 floors. Which it's going up 20 floors, or in those outfits. It's with the proton packs and everything, and that definitely had to be taxing. And they make a joke about it in the movie, how they're all exhausted. It like, look, back in my high school, we had a lot of stairs. We had 5 floors, but they were a lot of stairs. And those were a pain to go up. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine all the stairs we had back in my high school multiplied by 4, or so. up to like 20 plus floors, so times four, or plus a couple extra floors, and then also wearing those heavy suits and the proton packs. I do not envy the Ghostbusters one bit, but eventually they do make their way up. They confront Hoser. She takes her form. She disappears when they try to attack her with with the proton packs. They do try to reason with her a little bit, or at least create a diversion, but she's having none of it. And they tell the Ghostbusters to choose the form of the destructor, meaning whatever they think, that's the form she will take. At first, they catch on to that and trying to think of anything, but too late. The form was already chosen, which is hilarious. And the form that is chosen accidentally by Ray, because the first thing that came to mind, the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man. And considering this is a comedy movie, what better way to end off a comedy movie than essentially with a comedy final villain? So, sure enough, they try to keep the Marshmallow Man at bay, and they try to destroy the dimensional gate, and the only way they end up destroying the dimensional gate is by, sure enough, crossing the streams and hitting the dimensional gate, thus proving, and I think I said this back in one of my Superman reviews. I think it was the first Superman movie I reviewed, but I said it back then. It still applies now. If you're ever if in a movie they say something, they give you a rule that's not supposed to happen, 9 times out of 10 that exact thing is gonna happen. And sure enough, they cross the streams. It's enough to defeat Gozer and bring both Dana and Lewis back, and thankfully not kill the Ghostbusters. Whereas they're hailed as heroes happily ever after, pretty much. So, and that was the Ghostbusters movie. You got at least the plot summary for it. Now, starting with what I liked and what I disliked. Starting with what I liked. Man, this movie was quite a bit of fun. It's got enough of that 80s comedy cheese. He's mixed with some action and mixed with some funny moments. Some jokes that were kind of dated for the time, but it is what it is. So that kind of thing helps make the movie very enjoyable. I think the cast, they did really well. With the cast, you got Bill Murray as Peter Venkman, you got Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz, you got Sigourney Weaver as Dana Barrett, and you got Harold Ramis as Egon Spengler. Rick Moranis is there as Lewis, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, Ernie Hudson. Can never go wrong with Ernie Hudson. And the cast, I think, did really well in their roles. They portrayed their respective characters. The team dynamic is pretty cool. You got a little bit everything with the team. You got Peter, who's kind of like the de facto leader of the group. You got Ray, who's kind of the comic relief. You got Egon, who's like the brains, and you got Winston coming in, who's kind of the rookie, but he obviously works more with the Ghostbusters. There's the team dynamic of them is pretty cool for the most part. We'll get to that a little bit more, but hey, it's to the point where you pretty much enjoy them as a team. And of course, you can't forget that awesome song to go with it. It's the Ghostbusters song by Ray Parker. The song that got him in a whole lot of trouble. Ray Parker Jr. came up with the Ghostbusters song. He sang the Ghostbusters song. It was to go with the Ghostbusters movie, but sadly he got sued by Huey Lewis and the News. It was because Huey Lewis alleged that Ray Parker copied the bass line from their song "I Want a New Drug." And listening to that song and listening to the Ghostbusters song, The similarities are definitely the hair. Her. I don't know if I would say. I don't know if I would say Huey Lewis has Ray Hay Parker totally dead to rights, uh, uh, but they did hit eventually sell court in 1985, and and I believe Lewis does get hit a cut of the does get a cut from the song every time it's played, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm just gonna read the excerpt from the wiki here in regards to the song. It says, shortly after the film's release, Huey Lewis sued Ray Parker Jr. for plagiarism, alleging that Parker had copied the melody, primarily the bass line, from Lewis's 1983 song "I Want a New Drug." The case was settled at court in 1985 for an undisclosed sum and a confidentiality agreement that prohibited discussion of the case. And according to Parker, there were several lawsuits at the time because when you sell that many, and this is a quote from him, when you sell that many records, I think everybody wants to say that they wrote the song. He's not entirely wrong. And then Parker later sued Lewis for breaching the confidentiality agreement in a 2001 episode of VH1's Behind the Music by reasserting that Parker stole the song. And regarding his case against Lewis, Parker said, "I've got a lot of money out of that." And Lewis said it was at least he's $30,000 in an interview with Dutch television, NPO. And then in a 2004 article for Premiere Magazine, the filmmakers admitted to using the song "I Want a New Drug" as temporary background music in many scenes. They also noted that they had offered to hire Huey Lewis and the News to write the main theme, but the band had declined, and the filmmakers then gave film footage with Lewis' song in the background to Parker to aid him in writing the theme song. So, again, and yeah, kind of a point, but still. At least the song's still really good. And of course, it was the song I was alluding to in the intro there. But yeah, so good stuff there, and just overall a pretty fun movie in that regard. In terms of what I didn't quite like about the movie, for starters, I do wish, and maybe this is just me, I do wish we got to see the team and their kind of relationship fleshed out just a little bit more, especially with Winston coming in. I feel like Winston kind of felt like just there, which is a huge disservice to Ernie Hudson, but I do wish we got to see them gel just a tad bit more, or they do have moments of it, and you can tell there is the cohesiveness there, and it does evolve as the movie goes on, but I do wish we got a little bit more of it. And the main villain and Goat Hoser and everything, it does feel like there's something kind of missing in there. They do try. It's not from a lack of trying, and got to make Gozer like a big deal. They got like the spirits coming out. They got like the whole apocalyptic feel. They tried to capture the apocalyptic feel, but it just feels like something's missing. I wish that got fleshed out a little bit more as well. Granted, it was only hour 47, but I do wish it got fleshed out a little bit more, because I think there's potential there, like kind of doomsday apocalyptic feel. It does almost contrast a bit to kind of the more comedic aspects of the movie, and there are quite a few of them, including, how could I forget, Ray having a essentially ghost wet dream, but I do wish a little bit more was done with it. In terms of main villains, I've definitely seen worse, but I do wish you got a little bit more out of her. And of course the effects. Like, hey, look, I'm not gonna bully the effects too much. It was 1984, or the effects weren't the greatest back then. And I've said it with Superman reviews, and it bears repeating here. The effects are almost kind of a non-factor, because it was just how it is at the time. Comparing it to like modern effects wouldn't necessarily be fair. There are some movies that do look kind of better than modern movies, but it wouldn't be fair. But some of them do look a little bit rough, I'm not gonna lie. Especially when you had movies like Tron come out the same year, and a lot of those effects and everything looking amazing for the time. But this movie, he does still look pretty cool. It's just a bit dated, if anything. But like I said, that's not really fair, so it's a bit of a non-point. But yeah, pretty fun movie. Definitely recommend it, and I'm sure, and like I said, I'm sure we will cross paths with the later Ghostbusters movie. He's later on. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, and turn on post notifications. Every time I upload a video, so you can see as soon as it drops. And let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the movie, my review of the movie. Did you like the movie? Did you like my review of the movie? Let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. Try not to cross the streams, and I will see you guys later. Peace.